South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy joins us. Good evening, Congressman. Can anything be done to stop President Obama's power grab?
Sure. I can think of four things right now. Number one, my colleagues in the Senate have advice and consent. If they want to shut down the Senate over appropriations bills, I might shut it down over ambassadorships or other things. The Constitution gives them the power of advice and consent. The Constitution gives us power over the purse. So we have appropriations bills that are going to be coming through the House this spring. We ought to strip money away from this executive branch because our framers gave us that exclusive right to do so. If one branch overreaches, then maybe the other branch ought to stick up for itself. Thirdly, we can go to the judicial branch. We do have standing when it comes to vote nullification, which is what Obamacare is. You can go to the judicial branch and ask them to stop. But most importantly, we can go to your viewers, your voters. Almost 500 representatives are up every 2 years. Our framers did that on purpose. And we can say, you know what? You can fix it. You can fix executive overreach or legislative underreach by throwing them out.
Well, there's no question, Congressman, that the public does not like it when the president goes around Congress. And it's one of the first things that we learn in school and civics. You know, there are three equal branches of government, the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. So given the fact that I think just about everybody understands this, why does he continue to do it?
Because so far he's gotten away with it. You know, last October, for whatever reason, we weren't persuasive enough. But, you know, people don't like the Affordable Care Act, but they didn't like our tactic of shutting down government. Okay, that's fine. We got that. We still have appropriations bills that are coming. So what we ought to do is say, you know, Mr. President, you want to run roughshod over the Constitution? We have the power of the purse. We're not going to fund your pet projects. We're not going to fund your green energy initiatives.
So are you going to do that?
We're not going to fund your vacations.
Are you going to do that?
Blank right, we're going to do it.
Blank right?
Yes, we're going to do it. Yes, because my mom may be watching. You're blank right, we're going to do it.
And my mom's
Ron
watching
DeSantis,
too.
Tommy Rice.
Well,
There are a host of my colleagues that are not just going to sit around and mope and cry because this president overreaches. We're going to respond, and we're going to respond in the appropriations process.
And you know what, Congressman, I got to tell you, that quote from that Democratic Congressman Xavier Becerra, he says something about, you know, if Obama's actions were truly against the Constitution, someone would have sued him by now. Well, how does that hit you?
Well, he's been sued, and he's going to lose on the HHS mandate, and he's going to lose on recess appointments, so he doesn't have a good track record in court. We do have standing to sue. Under a theory of jury nullification, it's very tough for Congress to sue the executive branch because the judicial branch doesn't want to get involved.
Exactly.
But there's an exception. There's the Coleman case from 1939 under a theory of vote nullification, because think about it this way, Judge. You know, the president has the power of veto. You know, the framers gave him that.
Exactly.
So once a bill passes, he doesn't have a second veto where he can pick and choose what parts of a law that he did sign into law he wants to enforce. So we do have standing, but I don't want to run to another branch of government. I want to assert what the framers gave us, which is the power of the purse. And if he doesn't get his act together, and frankly, even if he does, we need to stop some of his pet projects.
Well, you know what? There's no question that the power of the purse on so many levels is one of the most powerful weapons that you guys have. But you know what's fascinating to me, Congressman, is the fact that, you know, here you've got this Obamacare law, right? I mean, how it was the first thing that he did when he got in. There's not one Republican who was on that, who voted for it. And yet here's a guy who's trying to change it when it was everything he wanted. He had no problem. He got it through exactly the way he wanted it. What does it tell you about whether or not these people know what they're doing?
That it's an abomination, and nobody wants to run for re-election based on worse coverage, higher premiums, violating the First Amendment, losing your work hours. Listen, if I were them, I'd try to delay it too. I'd try to delay it as long as I could.
But you know what, Congressman?
It's the law.
You try to delay it, but you know what? And I agree with you. You are absolutely right. But delay it for everybody. Stop with the picking and choosing and the waivers. But we'll see. Congressman Gowdy.
No,
go ahead.
No, I hope you're right. I hope in November my fellow citizens send that message. We want it delayed for everybody for a long time.
All right, Congressman Gowdy, we'll see you later in the show. Thank you.
Tonight, new reaction to a startling claim from a U.S. senator that the White House is systematically dismantling the nation's laws. Critics of the Obama administration's immigration policy specifically say that the administration is intentionally sidestepping the rule of law in pursuit of an agenda, and that is setting a dangerous precedent for the entire legal system. Here's Republican Senator Jeff Sessions.
Our law enforcement system is in a state of collapse. It's a deliberate plan by the President of the United States, and it's wrong. And people need to be aware of it and need to stand up to it, and I think the American people are beginning to do so.
Joining me now, Republican South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy, who's a member of the Government Oversight Committee. Congressman, good to see you tonight. And so Jeff Sessions was very focused on illegal immigration and talking about how 2/3 of the numbers that the administration is counting as deportations and removal are in fact border deportations, basically people who just crossed, who get turned back by our agents on the border, and that they're overstating their numbers. And he believes that we're now at a point where it's just complete lawlessness. He points to, among other things, this statement by our own vice president in March. Listen here.
11 million undocumented aliens are already Americans, in my view.
Already Americans, he says. Your thoughts?
Well, I just kind of discount what Vice President Biden says. Megyn, I'm just happy when his comments don't start a world war or embarrass a solar system. I discount what Vice President Biden says.
But it's not just the Vice President. You know, I mean, it's Eric Holder, too.
No, it's the Attorney General. That's the Attorney General, and I take that much more seriously when he says you have a civil right to violate the law.
Let's just play that for the viewers. My apologies for
nonsensical.
interrupting you, and then I'm going to give you the floor. Let's just play it so that they know what we're talking about. Go ahead.
The way we treat our friends and neighbors who are undocumented by creating a mechanism for them to earn citizenship and to move out of the shadows transcends the issue of immigration status. This is a matter of civil and human rights.
Go ahead, sir.
Right. It's laughable. It's like you and I saying we have a right to vote in the next election in Madagascar. If you're not a citizen, you don't have civil rights in this country. We do protect some folks with our Constitution, but to say you have a civil right to amnesty and to be the top law enforcement official in the country is absurd. But, you know, Megyn, these policies are deliberate. I don't think they're motivated by anarchy. I would disagree with Senator Sessions in that regard. I think they're motivated by a desire for electoral success, and they're motivated by the fact that they get away with it.
Is it motivated by a desire for electoral success or just a worldview? Because we've had a lot of discussions about what's happened under the President Obama, Eric Holder Civil Rights Division and their choices when it comes to enforcing those laws and so on. Is it motivated by, you know, them wanting to get certain voting blocks shored up, or is it they just view the population of illegal immigrants differently? They view you know, the civil rights laws and the voting laws differently.
Well, how about the drug laws? I mean, he trumped a congressional statute with a memo. You know, I think it's about electoral success. Go and contrast the statements by Senator Obama with the statements by President Obama. At one point, he was also concerned with executive overreach, but he's not anymore. I think the motivation is twofold. Number one, they want to win elections. And frankly, Megyn, they're doing a great job. They have won the popular vote in 5 out of the last 6 national elections. Their other motivation is they do fundamentally view the executive's duty to faithfully enforce or execute the law differently from the way we do. But we need to be more persuasive when we're talking to our fellow citizens, because we're the ones that are losing the national elections.
Trey Gowdy, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, for almost a year, there was an escalating pattern of violence directed towards the United States and other Western targets in Libya. Attacks on the consulate in Benghazi, attacks and assassination attempts on the British ambassador, attacks on the International Red Cross, attacks on courthouses, judges assassinated, culminating on September the 11th in the murder of 4 Americans, including our ambassador to Libya. Before those 4 murders, Mr. Chairman, just a few weeks before that, our embassy in Libya said this to the Department of State: the security condition in Libya remains unpredictable, volatile, and violent. So, Mr. Chairman, despite what would appear to any reasonably objective observer as an escalating pattern of violence, including sophistication, coordination, and management, this administration blamed the murder of our ambassador and 3 others on a video. Don't take my word for it, Mr. Chairman. Let's look at what Ambassador Rice herself said. Our current assessment is that what happened in Benghazi was, quote, in fact, initially a spontaneous reaction. I don't know what the phrase in fact means in diplomatic legalese. I can tell you what it means in a courtroom, Mr. Chairman. It means it's a fact. And she went on national television and she said, not as this ambassador has said, that I'm not going to speculate, that I've got to get all the information. She said, in fact, this was a spontaneous reaction to what had just transpired hours before in Cairo, almost a copycat of the demonstrations against our facility in Cairo, which were prompted, of course, Mr. Chairman, by a video, is what she said. And then she proceeds to say the attack was spontaneous. I can think of few things, Mr. Chairman, more antithetical to spontaneity than a 12-month-long prologue of violence in Libya. And then she said she relied solely and squarely on the information the intelligence community provided. Mr. Chairman, I would like to have another hearing where we can ask Ambassador Rice under oath, who told you what when? You're going to blame the intelligence committee? You come before this committee and you tell us who told you it was a video. Who in the intelligence community said it? Who in the diplomatic community blamed this on a video? And then we move to Jay Carney, who's the spokesperson for the leader of the free world. This is what he said, Mr. Chairman. I'm saying based on information that our initial information that includes all information, we saw no evidence to back up claims by others that this was a pre-planned or premeditated attack. What we saw was evidence that it was sparked by the reaction to this video. And that is what we know thus far based on evidence, concrete evidence, close quote. Mr. Chairman, you know that in former life, I spent a little time in the courtroom. So when I hear the phrase concrete evidence, it means something to me. That's even stronger language than simply saying something.
Says, is anyone paying attention to General Mad Dog James Mattis or just watching the blonde girl sitting behind him? Will, I think the answer is a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
No wonder his hearings went so well, Rob.
Yes.
Senate confirmation hearings have always been known to be just stacked with people.
They are.
Oh, it's
Right, it's like a Miss America competition.
They pop some bottles at the end and they go wild.
Well, another moment yesterday, President Obama and Vice President Joe Biden he was totally surprised.
This lit up social media. Vice President Joe Biden leaving his time in office on a high note. Take a listen.
I am pleased to award our nation's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Amazing. No one was more surprised than the VP himself, and people across the country took to social media to respond to that emotional moment. House Speaker Paul Ryan says, congratulations, Joe. Appreciate your many years of service and friendship. Josie writes, I wish my friends would surprise me with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Sorry, Josie, that can't be possible. And Una tweets, has there ever been a better bromance?
No, it was an emotional moment.
And, you know, it was nice to see Paul Ryan step in there and say something nice to a Democrat, people getting along. And this is another good one. The Bush sisters writing a letter to the Obama daughters, right?
You're absolutely right. Few people know what it's like to be the daughter of a president, which is why former first daughters, Jenna Bush Hager and Barbara Bush, decided to share some wisdom with Malia and Sasha Obama before they...
Look, it's time to take sides. The election is over. You're either with us or against us. That is, with the United States or against the United States. We have a new president-elect. His name is Donald J. Trump. So, move over Barack, move over Hillary, Harry, Jill, and all you namby-pamby, pathetic losers still crying in your grande double-shot skinny lattes. You know, there was a time in this country when we united behind the flag in celebration of America's new president, our new leader. We all did so in 2008 when Barack Obama was elected. We had high hopes for a united country, irrespective of our politics. And it's time for the left, assuming they're capable, to show the same dignity and class to the 45th president-elect. But no. This week, the president himself, Barack Obama, announces his intention to investigate whether Russia interfered with the presidential election, assigning our intelligence agencies to conclude the task before he leaves office. Seriously? Why now, Mr. President? You've been watching the release of information from WikiLeaks for months. You have watched the release of Hillary Clinton's emails. In fact, some even were sent to you. You've watched the release of John Podesta's emails and the disturbing information contained therein. You've watched the double-talking mainstream media outed for providing questions to your hand-picked successor, Hillary Clinton, for months. And you never say a word. But now it finally hits you that your successor of choice has not been elected, which you yourself said would be a personal insult. So you now decide it's time to investigate. And the suspect, Russia. Why are you talking about this now? You had a chance to put an end to the hacking, the breaching, and the interference, assuming that it might impact the election before the election. We have the best metrics operations in the world. And if all the warning signs were there long before the election, and now a month later you wake up and you decide, not only are you going to investigate, but you're going to investigate Russia, using the same bozos, the ones who said Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, the same bozos who said that we're defeating ISIS, the same intelligence geniuses who gave us the Benghazi BS, a politicized intelligence group. This isn't about the election, is it, Mr. President? This is about domestic politics. It's not about November 2016. It's about January 2017. And your attempt to prevent Donald Trump from the smooth transition of power and your inability to face the overwhelming Electoral College win that the American people gave him. Ironic, since you and your wannabe successor were so fired up that he might not quietly accept Hillary's ascension to power. So it fits that you say nothing about Jill Stein's phony recount nonsense, also backed by Ms. Hillary, and our wasted taxpayer dollars that will pay for it, and the division that it's creating. And query, why are you so obsessed with Russia? You who cut a deal and were made a fool of by the world's largest sponsor of terrorism, Iran. You know, the one that funds Hezbollah and Hamas, whose people yell death to America. You know, the ones you gave $150 billion to and secretly sent them another $400 million on pallets in an unmarked plane, and who knows how much more. But you're obsessed with the Russian, who at least is a Christian, who himself is obsessed with killing ISIS. A Russian who's had his own problems with Muslim terrorists, who told us twice about the Tsarnaev brother, the Boston bomber, that your administration was too dumb to follow through on, with deadly consequences to Americans.